All right, I got the house all to myself. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's hot. That is hot. Oh, frick yeah. Hey. What? What are you doing there, mister? Nothing. You looking at gun stuff again? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to leave you to it. Welcome to the Homestead. My name's David, and if you've not already figured out, I'm going to build a gun display. Now, this room is an upstairs bedroom in our house. It's not that big, but it's big enough to where I've turned it into my man loft. I've got my little desk right here. I kind of have an office space with my computer or whatever. Whiskey behind me. Over there, I have a gun safe. Kind of behind you, I've got more, ammo and all the guns kind of stuff. And I wanted an area because just to the left of, well, my left, your right, just to the other side of this whiskey shelf is kind of a blank canvas. I don't have anything on that wall. So I wanted a logo, but I also wanted to incorporate a gun display sort of thing. The thing with a gun display, it doesn't necessarily have to be a gun display. I can build shelves. So depending on what type of video I'm doing, I can put shelves or trinkets or whatever to hold anything really. And if it's a kind of a gun video, because as you guys know, I am going to school for SDI. I've been around, I've messed with and dealt with firearms for the majority of my life. And it's something I've always enjoyed, and since I've been restructuring my career, I guess, I want to just kind of start incorporating firearms into all of the things that I already do. So now I could have went and got a hold-up display gun wall and slapped it up there, and that would have been cool, would have been fine, would have been awesome. But if you've been around the channel for any length of time, you know that I like to do projects, and if I can build it, I'm going to build it. So basically, this is my go at my own little personal gun wall, gun display with a few little twists. Let's go ahead and get into it, and I'll show you how I built it. So the first thing we obviously got to do is figure out how we're going to build this thing. And I've tried to give this some thought and figure out different ways of doing it, but I think the best way to do it is, first of all, even though it's not going to be an official red, white, and blue American flag, I do want it to be as close to the proportions as possible. So basically, on a lot of like gun walls or slat walls that have an American flag, they normally, just put the American flag over the slat wall, and the slat walls just run through everything. I'm going to actually use these pieces as the stripes themselves. I'm going to try to incorporate the gap into the full stripe. That means I'm going to have to paint the inserts that go into this slat wall just to stabilize it and make it stronger. I'm going to have to paint that the same color of my stripes to add to that width. Why is that important? Because I don't want like a black stripe, a gray stripe, and then like a weird black stripe or silver stripe in between it, right? So I want to try to incorporate and make that whole thing one stripe. Does that make sense? Basically, these slats for the slat wall is about 2 5/8. But if we incorporate the actual slot itself, this is 3 inches. So if we base that off of a 3-inch stripe and we look at a flag calculator to give our dimensions, the width of this whole thing ends up being 39, which makes sense because there's 13 stripes.
In the business, We call this foreshadowing.
But this way, to be a true dimensional flag, 74.12 inches long. So 39 tall or wide and 74.12 long. So that's kind of what I'm doing. Like I said, I'm not doing an American flag, but I do want it to resemble the American flag. I haven't decided where the stars normally go. I think I'm going to put the logo, the Hidden Homestead logo, but I also might go ahead and do the stars and make it like a black and gray flag. I haven't decided yet. So we'll get to that when we get to that, I guess. Let's go ahead and measure this out, and we'll get all our dimensions and start cutting. So the old adage, measure twice and cut once. Pay attention to that. Do you know how many stripes the American flag has? It has 13. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I am missing a stripe because I'm an idiot and I don't know how to use this thing. Yeah, I know what I did. I'm just an idiot. So, basically, to fit this whole thing, this whole sheet on the table saw, I had to make another fence. And I lined that fence up on 39 inches. The measurements for my fence is offset because of where... Anyway, basically the measurements didn't line up. I lined it up to 39, but it's not a true 39 away from the saw blade because of the offset of my fence that I have. Should have known that. I do know that, but I didn't pay attention to it. So we're going to move on to the union box. I think I can save it. I'm just going to cut one strip and basically tie it into the bottom. Once I get the channels in here, you won't even be able to tell. It's just, pay attention to that. So we're going to get the union box. So basically, using that same calculator, that same measurement, make sure that you measure properly, basing it off of that 3 inches. The union box is 21 inches, basically wide, and 29.649 inches long. So we're just going to say 29, we'll just say 29 and 5/8 just to make it easy. 29 and 5/8. And I already got this one marked because that's why when I found out how badly I screwed up and lost a stripe, 29 and 5/8. So basically, God, I can't believe I did that. Basically, we're going to cut this box out and flip it over. And when we flip it over, that'll give us a flat surface. Again, to either mount the unions, the stars, or my logo. I haven't decided yet. We're playing this, basically playing it all by ear now because I've already screwed my cut up. But this is like a $60 sheet, and I don't want to just go get another one. So we're going to go ahead and make this work. I'm going to get this measured out, get everything set up, and I'm going to cut this union box out. We'll flip it over and attach it. And since we're at attaching this,
we'll go ahead and figure out how we're going to attach this bottom stripe. So let's get into that. So the 12 stripe crisis has been diverted. I was able to get the 13th stripe on here, and it actually worked out pretty good. To add this stripe, this board on here, basically I took one of the pieces that I'd cut off, the long pieces, and I measured. I actually measured this time and was able to cut it perfectly. So when I put the metal insert in there, I clamped it down on itself, and that way it's snug and it's good. I wasn't able. I was originally just going to try to do the Craig pocket screws, but this stuff is kind of soft, and because the channels on the other side, I was basically going to be cutting through those channels to try to screw those down. So I ended up just putting this stitch board in essentially, but that works out pretty good because that allows me a couple of different things. One, it stiffens this whole thing up a little bit because the grooves are running this way, those channels. It does flex pretty easy.
In the business, we call this foreshadowing.
So these actually help stiffen it up a little bit. The other thing that it helps out, I was wanting to run lights in this thing somehow, but I couldn't run a channel in here because then I would have been cutting into the channels that's already been cut on the other side. So by putting these scrap pieces of plywood in here, now I've got this cut right here to run a wire up, and I can come to either side. Again, the thought is if I'm putting my logo, the Hidden Homestead logo, in the Union box instead of the stars, then I can light that logo up and it'll look cool. So that helps out a couple different, like I said, a couple of different things. Stiffens it up, gets rid of the 13th or the 12th, or doesn't get rid, I guess adds the 13th stripe, and then just stiffens all this up. These actually is going to help out quite a bit as well, because when I put this Union box back in, everything, these corners all across here will all line up, and these pieces will actually serve as like a backer board to be able to screw into when I go to mount it to the wall. I could screw in from the face, but that's just not going to look as good. So all I got to do is, before I put my channels in, the metal channels, I'll screw through the other side where the channel's already been cut, and then I can just put those channels in and it'll be hidden fasteners. So that's pretty neat. That kind of worked out in my favor, I guess. So next step is to basically let this dry, and then we're going to flip it over, and then I will let it dry because I got it glued. I'll flip it over, and then we'll get it painted, and then we can put it together and see how cool it looks, I guess. All right, so you noticed I zoomed in on Ruckus. If you've been around for a while, you've probably seen Ruckus. Like he was the shop dog. He was my little buddy, and he would be hanging out with me. He either in the workshop or he would be hanging out with me on a project. He always just wanted to be around. And 4 years old, and we had to put him down. He was riddled with cancer. No signs, really. He was fine. And then within a week, we started noticing like he was throwing up a little bit. And then that was about it. A little bit of stomach bile. And then woke up one morning and we had to take him in. We had to take him in and put him down.
Now we can't prove it, and we never will be able to prove it, but everything that we've looked into, we're almost positive that the drug Apoquel is what killed him, is what gave him cancer. Now, Apoquel says that it does not give the pet cancer, and I won't dispute that. But everything that we found is that Apoquel doesn't give something cancer. It kills your body's capability of being able to fight that cancer off. Apoquel will actually kill the antibodies in your body that fight cancer. And because of that, he had no way to fight back, and he was riddled with it. Riddled. We tried. We put him into surgery to make sure. And it was too late. So I'm not doing this as a conspiracy. I'm not doing this as a public service. I'm not doing this to fight against a corporation, a company, or a drug. I'm just saying, from our experience and from our research, Apoquel is absolutely terrible for your pets. Get them off of Apoquel. So, because Ruckus was a shop dog, because Ruckus was my buddy, a shop dog, and this is a shop project, I made this little video in memory of him. All right, so let's talk about this thing. So basically, this is going to be where the Union, the stars go on the flag. I want to talk about it because this, for my purposes, for my use, this is going to work okay. It could be better, and if I do it again, which I think I am going to do it again, I think it'd be pretty cool to have something right up here maybe for the workshop. So I'm going to definitely probably do this again. So what would I do different with this? Now, first of all, just so you know, this is really thin plexiglass, and that is the biggest issue. It took me a while to figure out how I was going to make this possible. I talked to a buddy that has a CNC machine, and I said, if you can just cut everything out of 1/4-inch plywood, I'll paint it and then glue it onto a piece of plexiglass. That worked fine, but it's just lining all these letters up and keeping them straight, getting them glued, yada, yada. He suggested, why don't I just cut it out of plexiglass and then you can paint on the inside, keep the film or tape it, and then just paint it and then pull it off and then you're good to go. That worked out really good. The problem with this is, one, you can see it has, I don't know if you can see it or not, it has a stiffener on the back. This is a 1/2-inch plywood stiffener. The reason I had to put that on there is because this plexiglass is only like an 1/8 inch thick, and then he cut it down a 1/16. So now this part's only a 1/16, and then like the clear section is an 1/8. The reason that's a problem is because it's so thin and it went into like a thermal deformation. Nothing wrong that he did. It's just, I think it was just the material that we used. So because there was so much heat in this area, cutting all this out, it warped, it pulled up. So to get it flat, I had to put a stiffener on the back. The other issue that I ran into is, again, because it's so thin and the thermal deformation or whatever it is, I got a bit of cracking in, at least I can see in this clear stuff. Had it been thicker, it probably wouldn't have done that because it would have held up to the heat and the shrink and expansion a little bit better. The other issue, leave me in the comments, I haven't even looked it up, leave me in the comments below if you do know much about CNC, if they have a special bit specifically for plexiglass. He said that he didn't have one of those bits. He used the bit that he had was for wood. The problem with that, I think, is, one, it left a lot of ridges in here. It wasn't like a really clean cut. And because of, all this work it did down here, maybe if it was a different bit, it wouldn't have warped this because it wouldn't have got so hot. I'm not sure. So if I was to do it again, I would probably use at least a 1/4-inch piece of plexiglass, maybe even a 3/8 inch. Again, that would help with the heat dispersion. It would make it more durable to keep it from cracking. It would stay flat. And if there is such a thing, I would definitely use a bit for the CNC machine that is specifically for plastics or plexiglass. So that's what I would do different for sure. But for this project, this is going to be okay. I think I might redo it. We'll see, maybe later on down the road. I mean, it's going to be in the background, right? It's just going to be kind of a backdrop sort of thing. It's going to be backlit. Probably won't be able to tell any of this on video, even right from this angle. Right now, you probably can't even see it. But, again, it works for my purposes. But if you want to do something similar, I would recommend doing those few things that I just suggested. So let's put the lights on this because this thing is going to be backlit. We'll put the lights on it, get it mounted, and then I think we can hang this thing because we're about ready to be finished with this project. so if you're gonna do this, let me fill you in on a little trick that I knew about and I didn't even think about it as I was building this. If you remember, I put slats on the underside of this, on basically on the back, to help stiffen it up and to pull it off the wall a little bit so I can get everything hung. Had that foo bar that I had to splice this piece in, and I also had to put them back because of where the union box is going. What that ended up doing is making it stiff, which is what I wanted, but I didn't even think about it because to put these rails in, which strengthens your slats, it's these aluminum rails, you're supposed to kind of bend the whole sheet itself, and these things slide right in, no problem. Well, because everything's so stiff, I'm not able to just slide them right in. Unfortunately, I gotta take and persuade them in a little bit. So, design tip, I guess don't put the stiffeners in there. I don't know what else. I guess I could have just run stiffeners this way to tie in the union flag, the union box over there. Is what it is at this point. I glued everything together, so we're just going to do a little bit of persuasion. So here it is. It is nothing crazy. It's nothing huge. It's nothing fantastic, but it is a place that I can showcase a few of my firearms. As I mentioned, I didn't want to like showcase all my firearms. That's not what the point of this is. It's more of just a backdrop, especially if it's like a firearm related video. I wanted to have some firearms in the background. The cool thing with a slat wall is I can put shelves and place anything I want behind this thing. So, you know, I can do kind of whatever I want with that. So yeah, I do have to figure out like the angles to get everything in shot. Lighting for sure. Now the lighting has been an issue, and as far as the foreshadowing portion of the logo, when I got this thing in here and I started like setting everything up, the lights right here that I have shining on me actually shined a lot on this logo, and what it ended up doing was like blowing it all out. You couldn't even see what it was. It just looked like a kind of circle glowing. Now the reason for that, I'm assuming, is that this thing is made out of plexiglass. I did put I think it was Rust-Oleum dead flat clear coat on it. That dead flat is not dead flat. It definitely still has a sheen on it, and I think that sheen is just enough to just glare light back, and you can't see the backlight on it, and you also can't make out the logo and the letters or anything else. So I'm definitely gonna have to address that. Also, excuse me, I don't like the lights on the back of this thing. You can see they're kind of spread out and they're making polka dots all the way around it instead of like glowing. So that's something else I'm gonna have to address. I've gotten new lights, and I think I'm gonna just make a whole different video of redoing this logo because it could definitely be better. What I'll probably end up doing is scratching the plexiglass and just getting it cut out of wood and then gluing that wood. The reason being is because that wood is going to be better at not absorbing any light. And I'm also probably going to paint it a different color, maybe black or this gray charcoal. Reason being is because even as it's backlit, this lighter color is the same color as the lighter stripes. And I think they're not a good enough contrast. So I think I'm going to have to readdress the color of that just to make it pop out and show up in these videos. So if you like this video, if this is something that you're interested in building yourself, leave me a comment below if you have any questions about it. I'm usually pretty darn good at getting back to people in the comments. If you liked it, hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't like it, hit the thumbs down button, and then let me know in the comments below why you think I'm so silly and dumb. Consider subscribing to the channel. It's right there, and it is free. So why not do that? That supports the channel out a whole lot. Speaking of supporting the channel, to my Patreons, I love you guys. Lifeblood of this channel. Thank you guys so much. I love you super duper a whole lot. If you are considering or would like to become a Patreon, I have a link in the description below. I believe that is it. Peace out. Love you guys. Talk to you later. You jackass.